Man, I'm about to lose my mind. This is Dr. Teray Deaver. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Healthy Christianity. Have you ever gotten to that point where you were tempted, you were on the brink, the edge of making the declaration and fulfilling that promise of losing your mind? I want to deal with that topic, but I want to adjust the context of that. Because when we think about the idea of losing our mind, what we're really saying is what's in my mind, what I'm thinking about, what I'm seeing, what I'm receiving, whether it's audibly or visually, whether it is emotionally, whatever, is overwhelming and is getting to a point where I feel as though I have no more capacity to hold it, and I am about to let myself go. I'm about to allow the thoughts that are in my mind to play itself out. I am washing my hands of my responsibility. I'm giving up the fight in what I'm feeling, and most importantly, what I'm thinking. I want to challenge that. I don't want to sit here and convince you to not lose your mind. What I want to convey to you is that you lose your mind in the right direction. What do you mean? The thing that causes us, that tempts us, that counsels us to be overwhelmed, to be confused, distraught, even, is the idea that what I'm focused on is too much for me. What I'm looking at, what I'm receiving, what I'm hearing, I'm tired of it. It's a weight, and I cannot address it anymore. The idea that we often don't talk about is you're in control. Your thoughts can be overwhelming. Life can be lifing at an all-time high. And you would be convinced, if we're not careful, that you can't handle it, and you have to live your life subject to respond to what you're thinking, hearing, feeling, smelling, touching, whatever. But Isaiah 26:3, it says that he will keep them in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on him because he trusts them. Let me say that again. God makes a promise to keep you, to preserve you in a place of peace, in a place of sanity, in a place of calmness, when you decide to focus your attention, to arrest your mind on him. And the only way that's going to happen is because at your foundation, you have determined to depend on him and to trust him. It is a promise that we have. Now, what we want to read into the text is he will keep them in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on them because they trust him when everything is going right. That I'll do it when everything lines up. But think about this for a second. What really provoked God to speak this word through the prophet Isaiah was not peace and serenity. It was speaking to a people and to a circumstance of people that were tempted to do, as we say, lose their minds, tempted to give up, tempted to throw in the towel, tempted to say enough is enough, ready to scream, ready to just because I can't handle it anymore. If one more thing happens, if I get one more phone call, if I get one more text message. But the promise of our Father is that in the midst of the temptation to be overcome, in the midst of, right in the middle of your greatest mental, emotional, relational, financial battle, he says, if you would determine That in that, when you could be distracted by him or her, when you could be concentrating on this or that, if you in that moment would choose that instead of thinking about this, I'm going to think about him. That instead of rehearsing how they hurt you, I'm going to rehearse how he heals me. Instead of remembering and being traumatized by the thoughts that torment me from my past, that I'm going to remember my testimonies and acknowledge that the same thing that traumatized me, God brought me out of it. That the same thing that tried to take me out, God kept me in it and brought me through it. When I choose to take my mind off of that and put it on him, that's where I'm going to experience a peace like none other. And so my exhortation to you today is that you don't lose your mind in the circumstances, that you don't lose your mind in the relationship, that you don't lose your mind in what happened or what you're thinking about or what someone's opinion may be about you, this or that, but that you lose your mind on him. That you lose your mind saying, listen, I'm giving up talking about that. I'm giving up thinking about that. It's all about Jesus. Listen, I recognize that when I give that my attention, it's going to disappoint me. When I give that my attention, it's going to frustrate me. But one person that has never let me down. Let me put my mind on him. You know what that says? It says, I trust you in it. It says, I trust you regardless. It says, God, I recognize that I'm smart. And so instead of me using my intelligence to try to resolve this problem, I recognize you're smarter. So instead of me taking my time to try to answer this question, I'm going to focus on you and acknowledge you as the answer. I'm about to lose my mind. I want us to make sure that we take control over our consciousness. Yeah, you heard that right. Take control. See, a lot of times we do things when we're unconscious, and we acknowledge that, I had no control because I was unconscious. I was asleep. I wasn't thinking right. I was whatever the situation may be. But what about when you're conscious? What about when you have control? I want to beseech you, therefore, brethren and sisters, by the mercies of God, that you do not surrender the control of your intellect, your thought processes, I'll even dare to say your dreams, to an influence other than Holy Spirit. You are in control. All right, you don't have to take my word for it. Let me share it with you. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, it says, finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Wait, what? It didn't say that those things were going to overwhelm you. Those things were going to become your intrusive thoughts. No, he says you make the choice to meditate on them. What does that word meditate mean? Meditate, it comes from a Hebrew word, which means to mutter it under your breath. See, before the internet and before we had printed materials and mass media, the only way that a story, a testimony, a legacy lived from generation to generation is that it was passed down orally. And what would happen is when something would happen or something would take place that was noteworthy in a life, they would meditate on it. Can you imagine before there was books and before there were scrolls? Can you imagine Moses walking his father-in-law's sheep on the backside of the desert, seeing this bush burning with fire, and he takes note of it, and he has this encounter with God, and him thinking about you and I enough to say, I can't keep this to myself. And in hard times when Pharaoh would change his mind, and in hard times when fear would even try to rise up in him. And in hard times when people that he was called to lead would murmur and complain about him, that he would mutter under his breath, I've called you. He would mutter under his breath, I am sent to Israel to deliver them. I'm sending you. It is the intentional act of remembering and rehearsing that causes the word of God, the character of God, the nature of God to become engrafted in our soul. It is our choice to consistently meditate that makes the difference in the consistency of our lives, the consciousness of how we see ourselves and the perspective in which we view life, in our determination, and in our commitment to the future that God has called us to. Meditation is not something that's just momentary. Meditation is something that continues to happen. It continues to happen. Matter of fact, James said it like this, that it is the engrafted word that saves your soul. It is that word that becomes so a part of you that you don't see the beginning of that or the end of you. We're one and the same. And it is the word that we allow to become a part of us, not just the word that is preached at us, not just the word that we read casually, but the word that we live, the word that we use as the fulcrum on which we balance life. It is the word that we use to influence every decision that we make that saves our soul. And so even in this, the way that we are intentional about losing our minds in the direction of the divine is that we meditate, that we choose what we're going to think about. We choose what we're going to focus on. It is not in the absence of options, but it is saying that when I have the right to go crazy, when I am justified in a level of confusion or insanity or delirium, that I am going to make another choice. And before I surrender my mind, therefore my livelihood to that, before I surrender my mind, therefore my character to that, before I surrender my mind, therefore my decisions and my devotion to that, I am going to find whatever is good, whatever is kind, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good report, whatever is praiseworthy. I need to find something that reminds me about God. I need to find something that reminds me of his word. I need to find something that points me in the direction mentally of my master, and trust in him. Meditate on that and watch how he changes my mind. You know, let me share a quick testimony. It is not something that I'm talking to you about out of theory, but I've had people ask me before. They say, you know, Pastor, how is it that you say you go through things that we go through, but you bounce back quicker? How does that happen? And my response is very clear. It is not the absence of temptation or trouble or sin. It is the fact of my foundation is different. There are certain things in my life that are non-negotiable. There are certain things that I don't wrestle with anymore. When I come out of line with Christ, if and when I make a new decision to repeat an old decision that causes me to sin, I don't wrestle with the idea of his forgiveness. I don't wrestle with the idea of his grace. I don't wrestle with the idea of his mercy. Those things are non-negotiable. I trust him and I take him at his word. And it is such that when it happens, I implement 1 John 1:9. If we ask him for forgiveness, that he is just and able to forgive me and to cleanse me from all unrighteousness. And because of that, I begin to shift my mind not on what I can do to earn or deserve what he freely gives me by grace, but I just accept what he has already promised me. And so what helps me to come out of the self-imposed prison of guilt when I know I did wrong and I know I deserve judgment, But to walk in the freedom and the comfort and the restoration of Christ is the idea that he has forgiven me. It is the idea that he made me this promise. Therefore, I'm going to spend my time focusing on the promise instead of rehearsing what I did, why I did it, how it made me feel. I was guilty. I should have known better. You're no good. No, whatever is good, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is kind, whatever is praiseworthy. And those things don't reside in me, they reside in him. Even Jesus was asking the young rich ruler, why do you call me good? There is none good but God. Now, he said that not to deny his own goodness because Jesus is God. He said that because he wanted to make sure that he did not relay goodness or identify goodness in humanity. No, we are fallen. We are sinful. We are nothing but dust. Our lives are nothing but a vapor of smoke. All the goodness is in him. And so if there's any goodness in us, it is only because of our alignment to his will. And so when I meditate on what is good to him, it helps to change my mind. When I meditate on him, it helps to change my attitude. When I meditate on him, it helps to change my language. When I meditate on him, it begins to affect my perspective because I recognize that where I was I came out of it. Where I am is not the end of me, but he has a language for the future in me. And as I meditate on that, I give him permission to usher me and to watch this, keep me in perfect peace. So I want to challenge you today. Lose your mind. But don't lose it to that. Lose it to him. Make your decision, even when times are hard, even when things are frustrating and things don't go the way you want. I'm going to keep my mind on him. I'm going to. I'm going to. No, shut up. I'm going to. Sometimes you got to talk to. Be quiet. I'm going to keep my mind on him because I trust him. I pray this helps. This blesses you. Do me a favor. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Share this for someone that may be struggling in their minds, that continue to rehearse their past and beat themselves up, and may even be dealing with self-destruction because they refuse to forgive others and forgive themselves. We have a choice to make, and I want to encourage you to choose to keep your mind stayed on him. This is my time. Take care until next time. God bless. See you soon.